Welcome back to Florida Man Does Weather. That was sketchy for a minute. Looked like Imelda would be a nightmare flood scenario for South Carolina, Georgia, maybe even North Carolina at one point. And then it all went away. And Imelda is weak and sliding east. Humberto got way too strong, way too fast, and the trough absolutely evaporated. And as you can
Oh,
see right now, Imelda is pretty disorganized in the Bahamas. You still have Humberto out there, uh, likely going through an eye wall replacement cycle right now, just by satellite presentation. But look at how close these are together. This is all thanks to Imelda basically stalling while it was trying to get its act together right in between the eastern side of Cuba and Haiti. And then the next day rolls around, barely moves from that spot. The next day rolls around and it's barely moving west northwest. It was moving at like maybe 5 miles per hour, sometimes
yes.
not moving at all. And it ran out of time. So the window with the trough to take it north and then west was closing rapidly. And its lack of movement on Saturday is really what ended this journey for Imelda. So flip it over to that next mesoscale analysis page. So let's look at this. This is how your trough was starting to really impinge into the eastern US. How long did this run back? 96 hours ago, right?
This is only 6 hours.
All right, so let's bump it forward a bunch, bump it forward until it's starting to come into Georgia. So it was making good progress. Imelda at this point was still just an open wave. And then it parks over the island of Hispaniola, which is Dominican Republic and Haiti for a little bit. But your trough is still positive tilted big time. And we're looking at 300 millibars because it's just going to be a good representation for what your lower level reflections would be. If this is a deeper trough, everything else below it is also going to be correspondingly deeper to some extent. So run it forward a couple more.
This is
Actually,
at 0 Z on the 26th, so that would have been 8 p.m. on the 25th. So still 3 days out.
yeah. So keep it going. And you start to see it really rapidly degrade. So by this time, your
This
window,
is only 24 hours after, mind you, the first one.
yeah. So this is how fast this trough just fell apart and ejected off. And at this point, your window is leaving, and this is when Imelda had just started to move north. Now you've basically got nothing left of a trough. And then as we go through the 28th, which was yesterday, that window's gone. This is when it finally started moving north, really towards the evening and overnight of the 28th. And look at your trough. That is a ghost of what it was at this point. Now, the only thing that Imelda is going to be feeling after this little jump of northward motion is Humberto. Humberto greatly overpowers this little dinky remains of the trough that was parked over the southeast. Now it's basically gone now,
It's gone,
but
yeah.
Imelda is firmly entrenched in Humberto's footsteps. And that's not a good thing, really, for Bermuda because Bermuda's been dodging a lot of bullets this year. They dodged Aaron, Cap 5, they dodged Gabrielle, Cap 4. They're dodging Humberto. It might get close enough to give them some outer bands. But with Imelda, a lot of the ensemble members for Imelda have Bermuda directly in the middle of their spread. And Imelda's not going to be anywhere near as strong, I believe, as Humberto, Aaron, or Gabrielle were, but you could still have a very powerful, large category 1 or 2 knocking on your doorsteps because at this point it would be expanding the wind field greatly. It's going to be a very large storm. It already is a very large storm. It's expansive over the Bahamas right now, and it's just facing some dry air entrainment. So there's not really much to the west side, but that is going to change. It will eventually filter that out, and it's going to be trying to fight an extratropical transition. So what that does is every time you get a hurricane to undergo that transition, it broadens out your tropical storm force wind field and it broadens out your hurricane force wind field as the gradient somewhat relaxes in tightness but expands. So you end up with just these really big wind fields on these hurricanes, and your wind magnitude decreases, but not by too much. Milton did the same thing. It went from 185 mile per hour category 5 to 120 mile per hour category 3 by landfall, but it was hitting that transition during landfall. So
And
your
it was
hurricane
quick.
force winds went, they got big. And
And your wind field, just to add to that, Milton began its extratropical transition basically practically at the exact moment that it made landfall. Like it was pretty much, you could pretty much for all intents and purposes say it happened at the same time it made landfall. And you could watch the velocity presentation on radar. The expansion was instantaneous. So it's back what Caleb was
yeah,
saying. Once it undergoes that transition, that um, it's an instantaneous move. Like the wind field just gets dragged to the surface like almost instantly.
yeah, and unfortunately, it really is starting to look like Imelda is going to start cutting to the east or east northeast about the time it's in line with Cape Canaveral, or maybe even a little bit south of Cape Canaveral, and that lines up right with Bermuda. So Bermuda, any interest there, you're gonna have to watch out. This is gonna be a close one for sure. But yeah, it really could have been a disaster for the Southeast. At one point, it looked like Imelda could potentially stall right on the coast of Georgia, South Carolina for at least 1 day to a day and a half. And that would mean eye wall rain amounts right in some of the most flood prone coastal plain in the United States. And it would also include a constant push of storm surge plus about, a foot, 2 feet of rain. So all that water raining down has nowhere to go because all your ocean water is coming in. So it would have been the worst uh, piling of water you could have probably seen. And we're happy that scenario didn't play out. But at the same time, this one looks like a hurricane that somebody is going to feel impacts from. I know Aaron did give some significant beach erosion, a little bit of storm surge impact to North Carolina, but really, everybody's been dodging bullets this year. Let's swing it to the models because we got something else to keep an eye out for. So I've been getting into long range hurricane forecasting. Not really long range, but like I've been getting better at reading the MJO forecasts and the empirical wave propagation, the Kelvin waves, and all that. So um, one thing we're looking at, since October, November is coming up, climatologically, you start to get more Central American gyre events, which are known for spinning up two or more storms. Sometimes it'll have one on the Eastern Pacific side. Sometimes it'll have one there and on the Western Caribbean side. Sometimes it'll spit two on one side. It
Yeah.
just depends on where your environmental conditions are most conducive. And the way the MJO and the empirical wave propagation is starting to line up, it is getting favorable for those types of events. So we're looking at a couple of things on the ensembles coming up.
Okay, so pause for a second.
You're good.
So for everybody, just a preface to what we're about to talk about, okay? When we're referring to waves coming off of Africa, let me zoom out of here real quick so you guys can see. That's this rascal that's just coming up to the shore of Africa. It's getting ready to come off and go into the Atlantic about 12 degrees north. So when you hear us talking about these models here, that's the wave we're talking about. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. It's days away from even being on the coast, like
Right.
weeks away for being a concern for anywhere
Yeah.
on land other than the Azores, which they get these waves all the time. They know what it is. Nothing usually develops that quick over there. But
Yeah.
you know, we're looking at the European model right now, the European Ensemble 12Z run, and I've been noticing this little trend within the ensemble runs day after day after day. Uh, especially on the evening run and the 12Z run, you're starting to get these little pings in the Western Caribbean, and that's pinging that wave. So about two of the four major ensemble models I like to use are pinging Western Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico. So there is some potential there that matches up with the MJO and the empirical wave. So that's making sense. But pretty much every ensemble that you look at that goes out far enough is pinging this African wave. So let's switch it to the GFS.
Yeah.
All right, so you see it's pinging a little bit of Western Caribbean, a little bit more than the European was. And this is all, of course, going to be dependent on your steering high position. This one runs tropical storms into Honduras, Nicaragua, maybe the Yucatan Peninsula, and then doesn't do too much else with them. There's a couple ensemble members that will come up and out into the Gulf, but that's still just so steering dependent. And then even on the 18Z, the wave is getting pinged a little bit more. You still have
Yeah.
your Western Caribbean and Gulf stuff, but there's that. Let's go to Deepmind. This is Google Deepmind. This is the 18Z. Put it on the 12, just for consistency's sake.
There's your 12 right there.
All right, so your 12Z Google DeepMind. Notice that it has Imelda's ensemble plots that just cover up Bermuda, so it's going to be a lot closer call than they've been seeing this season. And then you have really nothing Western Gulf, but that wave once again getting picked up, and that's been the case on the Euro AI as well, which I know that doesn't count for much because it's an offshoot of the Euro. So of course it's going to ping the same stuff generally that the Euro regular ensemble is pinging, but at the same time it does count. The Canadian's been doing it as well. The Canadian's the other one that's been pinging Western Caribbean and Gulf stuff and that wave. So the wave has a lot of support. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But again, that's weeks in advance. We're looking more into middle of October time frame for that. But yeah, just some things to look for, and wanted to give you guys a quick breakdown on the Imelda incident and what happened with that. So yeah, anything more?
Caleb, I was just gonna say, as we are looking and we're talking about the tracks and all, and I've been noticing, um, as we were talking about the CAG developing. So um only model that's really going big on the Gulf and the Western Caribbean is the GFS. But something that's worth noting is almost all the models are pinging the Eastern Pacific big time. And it's worth noting that climatologically at this time of the year, you can get Pacific crossovers. Okay. We have an infamous name that's burned in every household in the state of Florida, and that name is Milton. Milton was a crossover. And something that's worth looking at, if you look at the Euro ensemble, there is a crossover event that multiple ensemble members on the 12Z Euro today are indicating that that Pacific Genesis crosses over. Now, that's one model run. That's at 240 hours. Okay. That
Mhm.
is that's 10 days out. There's a lot that could happen, but it is significant that every model is now pinging that Eastern Pacific CAG signal, and the Euro in particular, some of the GFS, more so the Euro, is picking up on that crossover event. If that crossover event would happen, chances are the flow would be favorable that it would come across to Florida. So that's something to bear watch closely over the next week or so. And as you guys know, me and Caleb will be watching this like a hawk, and we'll keep you guys posted.
I second that. thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. Helps us out a lot.
Yes.
We are slowly growing, slowly and steadily, and we would like to keep that up. We will be hopefully getting some more storm footage out this week.
Yes.
Should pick up again by Wednesday, Thursday down here in Florida. And who knows, you might get something cool out of that. You never know when a landspout's going to pop up. They just had one in Pinellas County when we weren't looking a couple days ago. I'm still a little salty,
Yeah.
but Florida man does weather out.